Welcome to the podcast today. We're joined with incredible Hana Gala, a PhD in business management turned neuro coach who's making waves in the world of mental freedom. With your groundbreaking method, Rapid Transformational Neuro Coaching, RTNC, Hana combines neuroscience and hypnosis to help high achievers break free from limiting beliefs, ditch overthinking, and reclaim their personal power. She's a champion for men navigating life's toughest challenges, including divorce, burnout, and mental gridlock. In this episode, Hana will share brain hacks and tools to help men over 40 to recover from divorce. And we're talking about dating after divorce. That's why we got together again. This is our second time getting together, and reset their mindset and unlock their best lives. Let's dive in. Hana, talk to me. This is our second together, so it should be fun.
I know. I'm so excited to be here. I think that the reason we're here is because the first time I was on your podcast, we covered a lot of ground. And towards the end, we got into dating and discovered that there's a whole new can of worms that we want to address because, yes, men get divorced. And then now what? And how do we date? What do we do? Those are some big questions. And I think that we want to talk about some strategies that might be helpful.
Yeah, I dated after divorce, and I said before in the pre-interview that I dated too soon. Why do men tend to pull the trigger quicker than women?
I think it's because so first of all, women are the main it's usually women walking out of the relationship. 9 out of 10, it's a woman-driven divorce. Mm-hmm. That has been the case for the last 15, 20 years. And what that means is, I once talked to somebody who said, a woman who is filing for divorce has been thinking about it for at least 2 years. Meaning, this is important for our identity. A woman has all this time thinking about, okay, or let me rephrase, the person filing for divorce, the person who goes for the divorce, who wants it, they are the ones who had the on-ramp, right? They had the time to think about it. They had the time to settle in that identity. And the identity is really critical here because what happens to a lot of men is when they divorce, they lose their identity. And just like any other loss, you need to allow for the grieving period. You're no longer the family man, the husband, the father. And there needs to be some time for you to rebuild your identity. But that's hard work, that's uncomfortable, and it is easier to go, I'm a husband, I'm a family man, that's who I am. I need to be that again. So men jump into another relationship, another marriage, because that's the identity they had and they know. And they want it back. They want to be married. They want to be in the relationship because that's who they are or were, right? So the identity is what pushes you, your previous identity is what pushes you into these quick new relationships.
I think the difference too is when you're dating when you're young and when you're dating when you're 40, 50, it's way different. And you're not ready for that change with the invention of the internet and everything else and the swipe and the Match.com. It's a whole different world. It's almost like a smorgasbord. And it's almost like drinking from a fire hose. How does a man handle all that availability?
That's a great question. Let me put it back to you and ask, what was your experience when you got divorced and started dating?
Interesting enough, I did not online date. Most of my friends did, and they had so many shit stories to tell me that I was afraid to online date. Match.com. One of my friends, let's call him Bob, he was the Match.com expert. And he got to the point where he would date. So he would have 5 dates arranged in one day. He would have them all come to the same coffee shop an hour apart. and then get with the coffee people and they would talk about which date was the best. True story.
I'm not surprised.
That's called efficiency. But the internet just scared the hell out of me, man. So I was more friends of a friend and things like that. Yeah, it was very interesting. And with my dating, my sweet spot was 2.5 years. And it was always like 18 months too long because men tend to be lazy and they don't pull the trigger. Like if something's going wrong, we'll say, hey, it's not that bad. I can wait it out. It's going to get better. And it never does, guys. So pull that trigger quicker. That's one of my favorite advice to men dating. If it acts like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So it's time to pull that trigger.
So, yeah, we could be here for 3 hours talking about online dating, but I think the trouble for a lot of men when dating women, and I would push back a little bit on the lazy part. Yes, I think good enough or okay enough is the golden cage, and those are the golden handcuffs that kind of hold you back from the greatest or the best for you. That's one. Two, I think the trouble a lot of men face is that online dating adds a level of difficulty that it makes it really hard to find a true connection. I know a guy who bought himself a dog, A, to have a emotional companion for the right after divorce, B, to just get outside of, like, to just get out of the house, but C, because that's a great way to meet people in real life. No, seriously, like, I know this from experience. You walk the dog and in 2 weeks, you know everybody in your neighborhood. And it's a really great icebreaker for just casually talking to random people. Oh, what a cute dog. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. 5 minutes later, you're talking about, hey, you want to grab coffee? That's happening.
Hey, 4, it's a good profile pic.
I can disclose that that's a wonderful opener. It gives women something to comment about without being too forward, right? So you can say, cuteness overload, talking about the dog. And now you have this opener and you can talk about that. You talk about the dog and she comments, etc. But my point about the online dating, where it's really hard for men, is A, women are, when it comes to identity, again, this is so critical. Women think of themselves on average, and this is a huge generalization and simplification, and of course there are exceptions, but on average, women think of themselves as the idea of themselves. Case in point, had a girlfriend, and she would say, yeah, we were snowboarding every weekend. Fast forward, talking to the husband, and he's, yeah, we went out twice on the weekend. But in her mind, that's what they do, or that's what they used to do. Similarly, if you talk to women online and they go, yeah, I work out. It's like, honey, just because every now and then you drop in for the Zumba class doesn't mean that you work out. But in their minds, and it's not like they're lying, they truly believe that identity, the ideal self, right? I want to be that person, so I'm presenting myself as that person, even though the reality or the proofs are not really there. So women are way more cautious, and it takes forever. The texting back and forth that takes 3 weeks to go for coffee is just so tiresome. Men are action oriented. They want to go and they want to meet and let's grab a coffee, let's grab a drink, let's go. Women need to feel that we're wired that way. Biologically, we need to feel safe before we commit. And also, women don't want to appear too eager or too thirsty or too easy to go fast. And it takes a minute for them to feel comfortable. So in the online world, we're playing this game where you're just like finding out. And on top of that, a third layer is that we are also wired for the sort of this scarcity mindset almost, but it's not a mindset. It's like when something is not available as much, that makes us think, oh, this is rare. I need to want this, right? Like I should want this. Meaning if somebody shows up and says, second, third exchange goes, coffee? Sure, let's meet. You go, so like part of you wants that quest, and part of you wants to have this idea that, oh, she's not as available, maybe I should want that. And that makes it really tricky. That makes it really hard to find the connection that it's there. My advice is for a man to be very honest, as in figure out who you are first. I think before we started rolling, we were talking about, again, the identity thing, where once you are divorced, you have to rearrange your whole identity. Some of us went through the online dating and used it as, this is helping me figure out who I am. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think that the good rule of thumb is bringing up the how long have you been divorced and how long have you been dating, online dating, pretty quickly in the cycle of meeting new people, because where you are and where she is are two different. You might be a perfect match, but she just got divorced. She's just dipping her toes in the online dating. She might not know where she wants to be, who she wants to be with, etc. You already figured it out. And like, even looking back at my own experience, but based mainly on the experience of my clients, is critical that you understand yourself first and then go out.
So what role does the self cousins are self-esteem, self-respect, self-confidence? How does the self cousins play in post-divorce dating? They all have a role. What roles do they play?
To me, they're all connected to knowing yourself. And knowing yourself is the alpha and omega of your life, but dating even more. And the reason I say this is because you want to find a mate for you. And you can only find that person if who you are, right? Like having a respect for yourself. That's the one cousin who's there. Have this image of a guy at the gate, and they will open the door for somebody who's matching where you are. If you've been through some shit and you had a hard divorce and you deal with a lot of sort of external circumstances, nevermore. I will not do that anymore. Or now I understand myself, or maybe I wasn't the best husband, but now I know. The guy at the door, the self-respect guy, will say, this needy woman who cannot meet me for coffee because she needs to check off 75 different questions before she even agrees to go out with me, I don't have time for this. And it's okay to have the guy, the self-respect guy, be like, nope. They're gatekeepers in a good way. They're your filters. Having somebody to say, you can do better, buddy. That is critical. You have somebody who is there preventing you from being completely needy, just forming a new identity of yourself just to fit this woman's expectations. You want somebody who fits you, and they're out there, but you have to have clarity. And it's never going to be 10 out of 10 on your list. But if you have these fundamentals and you have clarity about the fundamentals, it's going to make it easier.
So how can a man address the concerns? I am a realistic and unrealistic expectations guy. That's how I go through life. How can they handle the realistic expectations and then deal with the unrealistic expectations? Because a lot of guys date with unrealistic expectations.
Okay, so tell me more about how you decide what is realistic and what is unrealistic expectation.
So realistic is, hey, maybe she's going to have a little tummy. Hey, maybe her red eye might shift a little bit. It's just realistic on people and how they appear and how they are, because we're older, we have more mental. A unrealistic expectations would be, hey, this would be a 10 out of 10. I had a friend back when I was going through my divorce recovery seminar, and the first time she was with me too, we used to hang out with some friends and stuff, get together, and she had a list that her next boyfriend had to be, and she would show us this list out of her purse, and she found a guy with 10 out of 10. It was phenomenal. He had to be a Bronco fan, football, Christian, this, that, and the other. Some of the stuff was interesting, but she found a 10 out of 10. How can men handle those unrealistic expectations and realistic expectations dating forward?
I hate to repeat myself, but it goes back to your identity and also knowing yourself. So I will do a little segue and then I go back to your question. The segue is what I do. And in my practice, I help men identify this who they are and lean into themselves. We use deep relaxation, hypnosis, neuroscience. It's pretty fast. It's not a talk therapy. It's you go in, you have a problem or a question, and you drop into your subconscious. And the process is very effective because our behaviors are based on our beliefs. And our beliefs are not here in the prefrontal cortex. Like we can tell ourselves whatever we want about, I want this, I want to be this person. But deep down, you have beliefs, and your beliefs dictate your actions. And so back to the expectations. I had a client who ended up finding me because he was like, Hana, I date all these gorgeous women and they're chaos. I'm so tired of just being with these beautiful women who are complete chaos. And there was this misalignment between the expectation that what I want is somebody who looks great and blah, blah, blah. And then not realizing that what you're really craving, somebody who has the values that you have, right? He kept telling himself, I don't want a woman who's high drama, chaos. But he kept going back to the same type of a woman. And the reason for that is that it makes no sense rationally. And men are very rational in many ways. This is a true story. We went back in the hypnosis. He went back to the time when he was a little kid and he was watching his parents fight. And there was this scene that he dropped into that scene and he watches his parents fight. And somehow that fighting and chaos was intertwined with love for his parents. He loved his parents. It was it was a contentious household.
Yeah.
So in his subconscious, love and chaos went hand to hand. But now he's 45. He's past that. He already had a whole marriage with a woman who was drama, and he didn't want that. And he was trying to fight against that, but he kept going back. So my answer to your expectation question is, first of all, you have to know that the expectations are correct. Because we sometimes on that list of things we want have things that actually don't matter to us, and or we think that we should want them, but we don't. And or we want the wrong things for us, right?
Okay.
And we can't help it but I want somebody I don't care about the looks. I just want somebody who's stable and family oriented and will be a great stepmom to my 50-50 custody kids. In reality, if I look back, the last 5 dates were all women who were stunning and who were completely unhinged. Okay, there's a problem. So I recommend, first of all, clarify what you really want. It's number one. So let's start with clarifying that your expectations are actually what you want. That's number one. Number two, look at that list and say, if I were a woman like this, would I date me? So the second step is saying, and like being brutally honest, and men are actually really good about facing reality, saying, if I want somebody like this, am I bringing to the table something in kind, right? And if the answer is no, then maybe let's take 3 months and work on that, and then let's revisit the expectation. So I don't think that the problem is wanting everything. Like your example, you can have 10 things, 5 of them will be your non-negotiables, value-based non-negotiable. So have clarity about that. Like for me, when I got divorced myself, my number one thing was I want somebody who has kids or had kids. And the reason is because I believe that it changes you as a person. And it's important to me that you have that experience and that you have gone through that. And it's something that you can't just read about. That's a very important experience that was important to me. And I wanted it on my list. And that's a non-negotiable thing for me.
Yeah.
And you can judge it any way you want, but that was just for me. And so I think that men should think about what are my non-negotiables, and then everything else is gravy.
Goes from there. You just answered my next question. Dang it, you just slammed it too. So my next question or my statement is, why do men always gravitate to what they divorced? Because that was me. My first one out of the gate was just like my ex. It was just like flies to shit. And I went down that road, but now I see why that happens. Very interesting.
Yeah, because so the simple answer is we know what we know. We are always gravitating towards safety. And safety is what we live. And it's the devil. If you grew up in a household that always fought, and now you are sitting across a woman who's calm and composed, you're like, what's wrong with her? If you spend 15 years married to somebody who was a talker and the woman across the table is not, you're like, something's missing here. Because you have spent 15 years with something that eventually drove you nuts. It's wired into you. It's so comfortable. It is the known. It's the devil.
Yep. Yeah, that devil is strong. That's what, and with me, it took me a couple of times to figure out that's not the devil the devil I know is not the devil I want.
And to that, if nothing changes.
Correct.
So you need to go and be like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to change. If I want different, what's the saying? You can't be mad at the outcomes that you got you can't be mad at the results that you got with the actions you didn't put in. Yeah.
Yeah. What about the men out there that are introducing their kids too soon?
I've seen that.
Guys, come on, guys. What's a good thought process with that one?
I think that what you want is, and again, this is very specific and personal, but the number one rule should be, do I want this woman to be the stepmom to my kids? And let me rephrase that. The number one thing should be, what do my kids need? And then if they have been through a lot, depends on their age, depends on what was your divorce like. I know very amicable divorces and I know very contentious divorces. And sometimes there are court rules, like you cannot introduce another person. I had one person who they had to run a background check and present it to their ex before.
That was on the court.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. They agreed to it during so yeah, it was because it was part of their divorce. So they had to do it. But to me, looking at your kid, look, yes, you want a mate. Yes, you want a partner. But you're the dad forever. You're the only dad they will ever have. Stepdads, boyfriends, whatever, be damned. Like, they only have one dad, and that's you. Your job is to be the protector and the father first and foremost. So I think that for a lot of men, this should be the moment where they stop and go, my number one responsibility is to my kids. Talk to them, as in, you don't have to ask them, hey, would you like to meet my new girlfriend? What are they going to say? No, we want mom, depending on the age. But I think if you are happy for an extended period of time with this new partner, then you can start thinking about, look, I'm ready to marry her. Now we're going to see if it would be a good match for the kids. But waiting is always better. Once you get the genie out of the bottle, it's hard to put it back. Because then what? Now you have a woman you love, and your kids are like, nope. Now what? And the answer is, there are always ways. There are always opportunities. People change their minds. Kids change their minds. You can always bring it back to, what are the things that I can change and what are the things that I cannot change? And your kid's position absolutely can change. And also, there are different ways how to be with somebody. You just have to trust yourself. And that's why I think that for men in particular, this knowing yourself, having clarity about, I can do this, I'm the man of action, I can get everything, I want to get everything, is really important. And yet it's so hard, because if you went through a bad divorce, your ego and your sense of self, and I don't mean ego in the bad way now, your sense of self is so damaged, because a divorce is by default a failure. The union did not last, right? It doesn't matter whose fault it is. It doesn't matter, did you pick wrong and from the get-go? Is it that there were issues? It doesn't matter. The point is, it hurts, and you have to go through that grieving process and admit that, okay, we screwed up, didn't work out, now what? And you have to rebuild your sense of self, and you have to rebuild this persona, who you are, and go, okay, now I want this woman in my life. I want the kids to know how much she means to me. And all it needs is, I'm going to work with her. I'm going to work with them. Eventually, if you are honest, it will work out. I guarantee. But you have to lead with love. You have to lead with honesty. And timing is on your side.
Let's unpack that first date. That's one of my favorites. The one rule that I found out that I made up as I went, never, ever talk about your divorce on the first date.
Man.
Man, I did it. My friends have done it. That's the number one rule. Do not talk about your divorce on the first date.
Could add a lot to this list, but things you shouldn't talk about. But I will open with something a little different. So first of all, yes, do not talk about your divorce. Do not talk about anything that is potentially too revealing about yourself in a great detail. I think that when somebody asks, hey, why did you get divorced, or when did you get divorced? That's fine. Those are answers, 2-3 sentences tops, right? 3 years ago, last year, we're still going through the paperwork. Your partner, your date, has every right to know, right? And you want to be open about that. You don't have to go into detail about any of this. So don't. Then, if they ask not only about the divorce, but also other things, tell them, but be very, guard the details. The details are not important. Think about, it's the second order thinking, right? Women are asking because they are on the recon mission. They want to know more about you. If you bash your ex, it's bad. It's like talking shit about your former employer. Nobody wants to hire you. If you keep talking about stuff that, is too personal, you're showing your weaknesses. Women don't want to know that. Not yet. Just don't. And 3, what you should talk about is her. You're finding out about her, right? So I think that men often feel like I'm here, I'm entertaining her, but women perceive that as you didn't ask me any questions. And everybody loves to talk about themselves, so you should give them an opportunity to talk. And the more you encourage this talking, the more you learn and the easier it is to decide. It's, oh my gosh, her eyes are fantastic. Her personality is bubbly and wonderful. But oh my God, the shit that comes out of her mouth, and on top of everything, on top of all your stories, all about you. You don't need to, you are interested in her. It's a recon for you. And on that note, I will tell you, I think everything is my recommendation for men would be, yes, go out and date, find what you like, what, sweater fits you and what doesn't, and which one doesn't. But also, don't overthink it. Go and have fun. What you put in is what you get out. I have, unfortunately, several girlfriends who had terrible experiences and who had really bad dates. And yes, the scamming and money and just like all of that. I dated after I got divorced. Never once had I had a bad date, because even if they were terrible, they were entertaining. Like, you go in and with this, I'm going to have a good time. Within 3 seconds, 5 minutes, you're like, this is never going to work. So let's just have fun tonight. Wow. And you can enjoy yourself. On the list of things not to talk about, I have a great one. I once went on a date, and it was like a lunch date. And the guy picks like a diner, and anyway, I was like, why not? Let's do it. And so we go, and in walks this gorgeous man. He was so beautiful, like 6'2", hair, smile that it's dazzling, blah, blah, blah. He sits down, and within 5 minutes, he's telling me about herpes. I'm like, okay, pro tip. Do not bring up herpes on your first date. We haven't even ordered. What the is wrong with you? Okay. Then he proceeds to, and this is why it's important how he looked, to explain to me how hard it is to be constantly objectified by women. And I'm like, dude, like, every woman in the history of mankind has been objectified because, and look at you. What am I supposed to do? Feel sorry for you that you look like a fucking Adonis?
Wow.
I don't, what? So that would be also something I would not bring up. And the list goes on. But what my main point is.
He was good looking though. Come on.
He was. And I gotta tell you, when the bill came and he was like, I was like, no, let's split it. And you can get the next time. And I was like, honey, there's not going to be a next time. And I was very happy that I met him because it was fascinating, like anthropological study, basically. Yeah. We had a great time. And I was like, I don't think this is going to work. But he was just stunned. He was like, really? I was like, yeah, really. But I think that what you put in, you get out. Being yourself and being not yourself, but maybe a part of you that is true is definitely a way to go. But even if it doesn't seem like, oh my goodness, I cannot wait to talk to this woman. And if she walks in and you're like, that does not look like her at all. Also, everything that she's saying is odd, but there's like red flag. Okay, fine.
That's my next question. What are some of the common red flags?
If she walks in and she's like all kinds of red flags, lead with curiosity. Tell yourself, you know what? This date, this is my fact-finding mission.
I'm going
to the souls of the women that are on, what did I do? Being a detective and going, okay, how did I end up with this date? What? And you can just ask questions, right? Why do you do this? What happened then? And just let them talk. You're being entertained. You're learning something. It's batshit crazy, but you're learning something, and that might be fun for you. And you can not do it next time.
Wow. Oh, God. I think some of my red flags were smoking. That was definitely one for me. What are some of the others? Yeah, there were so many. I can't even think of one right now because you flabbergasted me with a tall 6'2" guy with herpes. With the herpes conversation. There we go. Yeah, it's men need to pay attention. And that's one thing too. Just pay attention. That's some of the basic things. See, something happens, don't just put it to the side, but like you said, be curious about it and just investigate further. Dating women with kids. My take on that is if you have kids, you and your date need to be on the same page, because if you raise kids differently, it's not going to work. And I've been there. What do you think about that?
100%. And I think that, again, you already have the kids. That's a commitment you already made, and that should be your priority. Look, that ship sailed. You already have the kids. So if she doesn't want children and or she has kids who she's raising in a way that you're like, what? Then that's a red flag, and you can't square that. Who people are. I think one of the dangers of online dating for both sexes is and women do this a little more, I think, we fall in love with the idea of that person. Like, I can make this work.
Oh, yep.
No, you can't, honey. You can't. If he's doing this now, he will be doing it 10 years from now. If she's enabling her kids, or if she doesn't have a sense of boundaries with her kids, they're not going to magically develop in the next 3 weeks. So think of your priorities, and if your kids are your priorities, which they should be, because that's a commitment you already have, then the red flags I would see in my dates would be definitely ask, because how they raise their children is really critical. 2, are they honest with me? So almost like watching for a trap. You're watching for the red flag when she says something, but then she says something that is completely counter to that point, and you go, that is a red flag, because you want somebody who's honest, right? Like, I want to rely on the information provided. So I would be very careful about child rearing practices, boundaries, and willingness to be a stepmom to my kids. Like, if she has kids, I think the upside, the green flag here is she knows what it takes to be a mom, and that, what it takes to be a parent. Often people with kids look for other people with kids because, as I said at the beginning, like, it is a life experience you can't just magically replicate by reading about it. It's like reading about how something tastes. It's like no, not the same. And I think when you have kids and the woman is not gonna be a good mom, then there's no, and like, you can like her, you can have great time with her, but it is a deal breaker.
Yeah. Case in point, years ago when my kids were in high school, I was dating a woman with no kids, just a couple hours away. So I would go see her on the weekends. And this specific weekend, my daughter's high school soccer team had made it to the quarterfinals. So they had a game. It was pretty important because we're headed to the state quarterfinals. And I called her. I said, hey, I'm not going to make it this weekend because my daughter has a soccer game. And I tried to explain to her, it's just a soccer game. Why can't you come? I was like, uh-oh. And that was like a red flag, big time red flag. So I know exactly what you're talking about, Hana. It's very interesting. But we've been on the mic for 45 minutes, man, 15 minutes longer than my men have attention span.
Sorry.
But no, that's fine. We're going to do a part 2 because we're just scratching the surface with this dating thing. Like you said, there's so many parts to it to unpack. And we just want to help men out there maybe get a handle on it and maybe go down the yellow brick road a little bit easier. So I appreciate. How can the men out there find you?
Thank you for having me. You can find me under the RTNC with Hana, oneword.com. And Rapid Transformational Therapy with Hana is something that I have been doing. It's actually neuro coaching rather than therapy, because men don't like therapy, and for good reason, because the long talking is rarely leading to action. And so what I do with the Rapid Transformational Neuro Coaching is more effective. You can be done in 3 sessions, and it has great results. I want to urge men out there, and again, based on the clients that I worked with in my practice, take time after divorce figuring out who you are. That is going to be your number one quest. Figure out who you are and really do an honest audit. That's going to help you find the right partner. That's going to help you be a better dad. It's going to help you in every aspect of your life.
And also the 2 custody blocks and the Phoenix Blueprint we will have on the website. Talk about those.
Real quick, I am very much no nonsense, practical tools kind of gal. And I write on my blog and I work with clients on rebuilding, repositioning, reframing. And these are very practical tips. If you face loss of daily access to your kids, as everybody who went through divorce does, it's really hard to be like, okay, so I can't see my kids. How do you want me to have a good relationship with them? I just wrote about it a week ago, and it's something that I want more men to consider. A, because of the technology, what it allows you to do. B, how to think about time with your kids. Just because it's more limited doesn't mean that it's less valuable. And I really encourage men to lean into it. And again, it's that mindset of, okay, this has been, and that is no longer a possibility. What are my other possibilities? And to get in that, like, I can make it work. I have all it takes. And I got some practical tips.
All right, Hana.
Thanks, David.
We'll definitely do this again. So thank you for your time on the Friday after Thanksgiving.